You know what? I was gonna try to use my computer in this mode. I don't know if I can tolerate the not keyboard. Keyboard, I missed you so. Okay. All right, the hour of 6:30 having arrived, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Columbus Plan Commission to order. Mike, will you call the roll?
Bright. Traxler. Myers. Kajewski.
Here.
Monday.
Present.
Albright.
Present.
Finkler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. The meeting agenda was posted and noticed in accordance with state law.
That is correct.
Okay, we've got a short working agenda tonight. I'll entertain a motion to approve or amend.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move to second.
I have a motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, minutes. Looks like we're all on our screens today. Wow. All right, so,
Less than last week.
yep. Minutes are in your packet. Take a minute to review, and I'll entertain a motion to approve or amend.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Mr. Bright?
Sorry I'm late.
Nope, no problem. We'll pause a sec. Good. Sorry, Mike, is there a paper packet at all?
Yeah, it should be.
We just handed it down.
There should be, everyone should have, I put them all up there, there's two big,
Okay, so this is
Yep,
the
yep.
packet today. Okay,
Yep.
great. All
I
right,
did not print out the PowerPoint.
okay. Can
Are you
you,
gonna show it?
can you display it there?
The PowerPoint,
Yeah.
if you wanna see it there.
Yeah. I mean, I've got it here.
Yeah.
You guys
Okay, because he doesn't have.
have
okay.
yours? Okay.
Well,
Screens.
Yeah,
Wow.
Wow.
All right. Okay. Let's see, approved minutes. The only item of business we have today is further discussion on the zoning rewrite. So,
yeah. I can just give a little
yeah,
recap here.
yeah, why don't you do that, Mike?
We-
Thanks.
We can review this again. Right now, Sonia with Vanderwall Associates is working on the first draft of part one of the zoning code, so she's working on the first draft of what we're talking tonight, and she's hoping to get that to David and I by Christmas for us to review and make comments and get that back to her. It's gonna be really tight to get that draft ready for the January Plan Commission meeting. We're gonna push it, we're gonna do the best we can to get it ready, a draft there. But we might not make it, so it may get pushed back to the February meeting. But we're gonna push hard on that. So that's kind of the main thing there, what we're working on. And so, any comments and direction we get from you guys tonight, I'll share that with her tomorrow or early next week. And then that draft will contain the kind of direction that you guys are providing. Again, it's another draft, so we'll be moving in that direction.
Is it fair to sort of describe where we're at, where we've got a map, we've got tables that go with those maps, both tables that tell us, what do you call it, the bulk dimensions, right? The how big of lot sizes and buildings, et cetera, and then the use table. So between those three elements,
Yes.
those are the building blocks. All
This
the
is-
stuff that's getting written now is filling in the detail in words
Yeah,
of what
essentially
these are
taking
already
what's in the
describing.
tables and putting it into words.
Right.
In like something you would actually see online as the zoning code. But then there's more detailed stuff, you know, like we have storage of recreational vehicles, right? We talked about that kind of stuff. We have signs, we've got, you know, that's part 2, the more detailed stuff. The subdivision code, that's like part 3. And I can actually, there's a table later in here. Through it, but, so yeah, this is the overall piece, but there's another slide in here somewhere that kind of breaks it down into more specific categories, and I feel like here we go. So, you know, we're kind of on the establishment of
Page
zoning
3.
districts and bulk regulations piece here, part 1. And so part 2, the performance standards, that's all the like detail regulation part, all that kind of stuff, signs, all those things. So some of what I'm gonna ask you tonight a little bit is, as we go over, talk about these new zoning districts, bulk dimensions, also kind of looking for feedback from you guys about, should we have design standards for some of our commercial corridors, or, you know, industrial and commercial zoning districts? Our comprehensive plan talks about having high quality development. That's kind of general, so we need you guys to help kind of whittle that down of what that really means. One of the ways of doing that is having some level of design requirements. You already gave us direction that we don't want those for residential districts, but we do have in our comprehensive plan, it recommends having some kind of high quality development, like for our, you know, say our entry quarters coming in by Interpac, Highway 16, downtown, those kinds of things. And so, you know, we'll want to hear from you, you know, and again, when it comes to design guidelines, like any kind of regulation, you can have a lot on one side, or you can have a lighter role of design guidelines and regulations. So just don't think it's all like, it can be a lighter version of design guidelines, or it could be like full-blown heavy-duty stuff. So we want to hear, it's a sliding scale, and that just helps us kind of guide where we put our efforts and work in part 2 coming up.
Do we have any design guidelines currently in any of these areas?
In the zoning code, the closest thing we have some stuff in the sign ordinance, but it's not, I wouldn't call it design guidelines at all.
Sure, so we're not like requiring like a certain percentage of commercial to be masonry or anything like that?
No. Now, historic preservation is part of the zoning code. That's part of the performance piece. There is processes. If there was a local designated historic district, we have processes for reviewing and approving historic elements. But what we don't have is the design guidelines to go with that. So we have the process, but it's like very, everyone's just like making an approval based on their
subjective.
opinion. It's very
Yeah.
subjective. And that's a very poor way to go about doing things.
Yeah. I've seen, in my day-to-day work, I've seen communities have maybe a guideline that you have to have a percentage of the front facade be done in a masonry product, or you have to have walls that vary in height, or you have to have
Some type of
them
roof
jog in and
line,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, so, and I do think there's some value in having something so that you can't just build the bare minimum, particularly if when an out-of-town developer might come in and put in a retail operation or something where they're not invested in the community.
Dollar Tree.
Yes, the Dollar Tree, the O'Reillys are two examples that come to my mind. I've seen in other communities where both of those chains have much better looking structures. I think maybe Wanakee's the one I'm thinking of, but we get the ugly version because we don't have rules. And not to put in such onerous rules that you kill development, but
Yes.
a little,
It's a balancing act. It
Yes.
definitely is. Definitely is. And then along with these guidelines, these guidelines talk about or outline for the end product, but as part of that, the process to get there is important as well, because, for instance, when HLPC was reviewing signs and facades in downtown a number of years ago. Let's say you were a business, you were leasing space, you want to get your sign up. That was a very lengthy process, likely 8 weeks or more, to get your sign approved, because you had to submit your materials, have the meeting, and then they would ask for changes, and then you'd have to bring it back again. And so how we review and approve these guideline or projects is really important. It doesn't come to the Plan Commission. Is it guidelines and approved by staff? That process of how we review and approve is very much important as well.
So I have a couple of things. So I was thinking some of the same things you were thinking. So my first comment is for downtown, our downtown is historic, and we don't have any tentative guidelines. I mean, except for, I do know what you're talking about as regards to the signs and that taking 8 weeks. So my first question is
Now, let me back up on this. HLPC was doing that because it was thought that there was an actual local historic district. There is not, because
Right.
when those were created, they didn't follow the ordinance. So they're not doing it anymore.
No, I understand.
Okay.
So at some point, hopefully that gets worked out and that it happens.
That's up to this Plan Commission
Yeah.
to do
Okay,
that.
so, because I would like to see our downtown registered as a historic district. So a couple things. So it's my understanding, so I've been down to Ripon, and Ripon has done a really good job with their small downtown area. And then also Wanakee, they have a design concept. So that, I wouldn't say, I think when you go through Wanakee, I think it's quite pretty. So, and besides Wanakee and maybe Ripon, as far as being examples, do you have any other that you would say, any communities maybe in the area that have a better than just okay standard that we could, kind of use as a sample?
I think that'd be a good question I can ask Sonia, and she can share with us maybe a couple different approaches, and that's something I could send out in an email so you guys can review in between meetings as well.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Yep.
Yeah, like Wanakee's, I like, because like you drive through there, and it's clear that there is some design standard, but things do not all look the same. Contrast, I don't know if you guys ever get over to Germantown, but that all looks the same. And there's other communities that have had such a heavy hand on it that it's like a nicer version of monoculture, and that's not.
Yeah.
I don't find that appealing personally.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't been to Ripon lately, but
David is very familiar with Ripon, I think, right?
Used
wanna-
to lived
you-
there for a while.
You want
Okay.
to share what you know?
So a lot of it's like through their Main Street program, and they've had several attempts at getting like a developer to basically do the whole thing in one shot. They had a unsuccessful one, and then eventually they got a developer that did an alright, that did a decent job.
okay.
And then they really have a good couple of solid anchor tenants downtown, like their brewery, their pizza place, and then they got their Village Green, and then a couple other shops that have been there probably for over a decade now.
From a regulatory standpoint, are you familiar at all with how they review signs or building permits for facades or things like that?
When I was there, that went through, the signs went through historic preservation. But they also had a business improvement district, and I think the facade and everything that went through their plan commission.
I think they have a gold standard too, as far as the historic preservation, their ordinance. When we were having a ordinance meeting and we talked about the HLPC, we actually had a state person that came in and gave us he talked to us, and he told us that the Ripon historic area and their guidelines are considered a gold standard as far as the way that the buildings appear and the way the process works. My last comment is, I think if we ever get this straightened out and in a position where it can be implemented, I really think we should put guidelines on how long it should be able to take, because I know for a fact also that we had some sign people that had that back when the HLPC were trying to do stuff down there. It was horrendous, the time that it took to find out about painting and to find out about signs, and it actually, the people trying to start a business were actually super frustrated.
Just so you see, up here on the screen is our facade grant program, facade grant webpage. And one of the things that I pulled together in this, because with the facade program, we don't have design guidelines or requirements, I provided this link here, suggested design guidelines for downtown Columbus. And if you would scroll through this, you would probably go, oh, that looks very similar to Ripon, Wisconsin.
I probably read this then.
So, I went through this document and pulled out all the different things and more as an educational, and say, hey, think about these things. That's our approach right now, is really educational and
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right, we don't want to force people to have to actually put in a standard historic window, because that could be over a couple $100,000. But if we can come up with a comparable alternative that makes it cost effective and also pretty, that would be the best way to go.
When I've seen landscape standards for commercial projects, there's often a point system where, they might not tell you exactly how many trees or exactly how many bushes, but they're going to say that these elements are worth this. Have you ever seen anything like that on an architectural level?
I can't say that I've actually seen it. I'm sure it's been done, and we can talk about that. That's exactly. The city engineer and I have discussed landscaping. That's part of our subdivision code rewrite here that we'll be talking about later. And we had that discussion a few months ago about those kind of approaches, is that you have some kind of point system, because there's more than one way to address. Every site's a little unique, and in a point system of kind of a overall concept creates a lot more flexibility to adjust each site. And if you say specific trees, or you get too specific, it starts to become inflexible for every
Right,
unique
and
site.
that's where my mind is going with this, because
Yeah.
it's very difficult to write a one-size-fits-all recipe for every development. I've in my day job, I've seen codes where someone tries to write in that it needs to have a 412 pitch. Well, suddenly you're building a building that's too wide, and you'd have a ridiculously goofy proportion, and a parapet front wall would have made much more sense. And, I sell buildings for a living. I know how to make buildings look good, but sometimes you run into these just ridiculous rules in some cities.
Yeah.
And they can be very inflexible and just kill business plans.
So prescriptive that you
Right,
can't
right.
make that you can't make something
Right, or
else,
they'll-
which is just as
Or they'll
good
have
fit.
they'll
Yeah.
have a rule that will say, I've seen rules where it would say it has to be masonry. Like a cinder block wall would have checked the box that a certain city might have said, when instead we could have done something with fiber cement panels that were really attractive and half the price. You know, so there's a lot of different ways to get it to look nice. And yeah, so that's like my caution, because I'm on the other side of this all day long. And
That's a really good perspective, and I think you're really hitting the balance of this, is trying to find that balance of and there's ways to do that, and I think if that's the direction all of you want to go, is try to find that that balance, that we'll be able to find something that meets that.
yeah, the hard part is when you're trying to avoid making it too subjective, and I know like that we're trying to give direction and not have to have a committee just willy-nilly decide, yes, no, I like this, I don't like this. And it's hard to get away from that then when you don't have some direction.
You get your mic on, didn't you?
My mind goes back to, and we're talking about a pretty broad subject here. I moved here in 2017, and I love my town. I love living here. But to this day, the eyesores in the downtown are still eyesores. You know, we have these antique shops that haven't opened their doors in 20 years. Is there anything we can do as a planning commission to require something to make it more attractive when you drive through our downtown? We have antique shops that, you know, it's just horrible. To walk around our downtown is not fun. And,
Yes, this
and I look at Baraboo as an example. Baraboo has a wonderful downtown. Cute shops, shopping, and so on. There's nobody walking around Columbus. And it's because, like, the building that's on the corner of Ludington and 16, you know, the red brick building, it's had cobwebs in the windows for the whole time I've lived here.
That is up for option.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can buy it.
Mike, do you have a comment in regards to this? Because I do.
Why can't we do something as a planning commission to say, either vacate and sell cheap on the dollar, or do something with it?
What you're talking about here, you're right, this plan commission can do something to make buildings look more attractive. However, your last comment there, the plan commission can't really do that realm. That's outside the scope of this commission. What you can do is do exactly what we've been talking about. Create design guidelines that when they do decide to do something, then we have requirements that you have to have a traditional downtown sign and not a metal 50s era awning coming out. Those regulations would kick in when a project and a building permit comes into play, a zoning permit and a significant change. Do we have the ability to force property owners to do a facade renovation? For the most part, no. And that generally, all this kind of redevelopment type stuff you're talking about is really handled mostly by the Community Development Authority. And they have a facade program, grant program, and that's been wildly successful over the last 2 years. Prior to me coming here, that budget was $2,500 or $3,500. It's now $32,500 for matching grants. And we've run out of money each of the last 2 years, and there continues to be interest. But there's limits to what we can do as far as forcing people to do things.
Yeah, I think you're almost talking about more addressing blight and
Yeah.
rot and peeling paint, which that's probably some different rules that are in the city code, which is just a matter of enforcing them.
But how does that
Paying the
happen?
lawyer fees to do it.
I mean, how does it happen? I mean,
There's code enforcement. It's really a staff level responsibility. And then some of that, when you get into that blight enforcement, there's legal considerations, and legal costs that come along with that.
Because that's fraught with case law with regard to what a private citizen has a right to do or not do versus the government telling them thou shalt. So that's where the rub is. But I think your description of, like, this body is once somebody decides,
To do
or
something.
once they've been told, right, whatever it happens to be, to do something, we've decided on this is how you go about doing it, not the what, right, and not the reason behind doing it. It's how you go through that process.
So let's say someone buys the antique store, let's say the owner finally is able to sell or otherwise get rid of the antiques that are in there and put the building up for sale and sells it, and there's a new owner and they want to do a facade renovation. If this body creates design guidelines for downtown, there would be a process and method to require someone to meet those guidelines.
But until then, we're just stuck looking at it.
Yeah, and we're waiting, that's why we have this process here. We've engaged you, the city council has provided significant funding for this body to create the rules that we might or might not have and adopt in December of 2026. So this work that you're doing here is really, really important. So we're, as staff and the consultant, we're waiting to hear from you. Do you want design guidelines? And if so, do you want to, how do you want them? And so I think you guys are doing a really good job at kind of giving us a direction.
Well, and Steve, I think I'd just add, some of it is making things possible, like by reducing some parking requirements for business types. Changes in the code can make it easier for someone to come in and redevelop some of those into businesses that they might not have been able to do before, because the codes required too many variance applications and discouraged people from doing things.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Can we, I've got some thoughts on the accessory structures and setbacks and such that are in here too. I don't want to like change the subject.
Yeah,
but-
I was going to say we've kind of more had philosophical and sort of getting our feet under us discussions.
So just before we move on to,
Okay.
so it sounds like you want to have some design guidelines that are not overly specific, that accomplish a bigger goal of quality development for downtown. What about like our commercial corridors, like out by Interpack?
That's what I was going to ask. I think we talked about these last time, but I don't recall really looking at the land use map. Did we do that? So like we kind of know, like
I don't think we
we
did.
kind of know what the bulk dimensions are, and we kind of know the uses, but we don't know where in town these would really apply yet if we haven't looked at a map.
Well,
This might be
some-
because I'm obsessed with maps. So if you want to talk me down from this, I'm good with that. But
No, I'm good with where you're going.
Yeah, some of this is, I guess we have the future land use map in the comprehensive plan. Is that what you were
there's the accessory stuff on the
talking about?
on the bulk
Yes,
table,
yeah,
right?
we're talking about stuff on these tables.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about, the future land use map and the comprehensive plan?
No,
Or the zoning map?
I was talking about the draft zoning map that would.
We don't have a draft zoning map. That's later in the process.
Okay.
So we're trying to create these districts,
Okay.
and then we would take a look at existing zoning, this future land use map, and I'm going to,
Okay.
boy, this cursor
So like
is
when,
really,
on our
You have a lag from TV.
zoning standards, when we talk about, say, a business park, which areas here in Columbus are considered
Yeah,
a
maybe we can
business
use
park?
this at least
Yeah.
as a
Are we-
base map to.
Interpack area is a
so
business
like
park?
the green down there at the Highway 73, we're calling that green area, based on past history and development. That
Okay.
is, we're using that, marketing that area as the Gateway Business Park.
Yeah, so that's Duffy, just to get a point of reference, that, isn't that,
That's
is that
Interpack,
from?
that's the hospital.
Okay, so
Thrum
that's
is-
further
Thrum
in
is up
town
here.
then.
Yeah, we're,
From
the
up there, way up there.
Way-
yeah, right, 73 and 151.
Oh, okay,
All of this
sorry.
green,
Yeah.
all of this green here, we're
Okay,
calling
you're
that,
calling that the gateway? I
Gateway.
think that's what the TIF is or something, right? Is that
No,
what-
no,
Oh.
that, there's, I think there's a road name there and other development refers to that. The, this green area is actually in the comprehensive plan, if you look here. Gateway Commercial.
Okay.
So there's this whole theme previously over the years that this is, kind of a brand of gateway to the city. And then the other, so you have downtown, and then up here you have the kind of Commerce Drive business area, this orange area here. And then you have the Highway 16 West, Drexel, From, and then, this undeveloped area up here. And then, of course, you have the Highway 16 West James Street area, this orange here. So these are all kind of like entry corridors, key business districts. And generally speaking, a community, you want a variety of districts. The vision's ultimately up to you and the city council, but sometimes you want a variety, sometimes you want a higher level design standard in one area of town, and maybe something that's less design, maybe, like a From, From Family Pet Food, how are you gonna
It's
design that?
manufacturing, it's not gonna be as pretty.
It's
There's
heavy,
gotta-
it's a heavier industrial, so
Right.
you want a combination of all these things ultimately in your community. And for Columbus, I think they're, like the From area, you probably, with its proximity to the interchange, that's probably not an area I would recommend design guidelines. Or you could, but you
Well, that's
wouldn't
more
want
heavy
them.
industrial.
Yeah.
So would a reasonable request from this group be to ask city staff or the consultants to propose some guidelines or?
Or, yeah, we can work in, right now, if you look at the zoning districts, I'm gonna pull up, if you look under, industrial zoning districts, right now we have 4. We probably should move that down to 3, no more than 3. But the idea was like the business park and light industrial might be similar land uses that are permitted in there. But the business park one is the one that has the design guidelines, if that makes any sense. And then because the other business districts we have are being proposed, a downtown district, which we can have design guidelines for downtown mixed use. And then there's commercial mixed use, and yeah, we're moving into one, instead of having B2 and B3, we're proposing having one commercial business district, which is a different mix of land uses, which you can see on your table on your,
So would Garb Plastics be considered light industrial?
yes.
The building over there, that's because it's basically in city limits. Okay, so that would be considered light industrial, but then like Enerpac is business park.
Well, yeah, and
Okay.
some background on that is the developer of where the Interpack land is has design guideline covenants. So there's zoning regulations that can do regulations, and then there's covenants that the developer enforces. However that developer writes those. So those properties south of 73 on Gateway and Heritage there's like 2 parcels right now because the hospital grabbed some. So there's 2 parcels left there. Those need to follow the covenants, but that's not necessarily technically city enforced. It's enforced as kind of developer regulation, so to speak.
That's a civil agreement, not a government to.
And
Or-
historically, and the city attorney says we shouldn't enforce covenants. That's recommends not going down that route.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't cross the line between public and private, so yeah.
Yeah. So, that, I think this future land use map is kind of gives you the can kind of break down, and you can kind of think about as we go forward where that might apply. Commerce Drive area, there's a number of undeveloped lots there, so design regulations actually and then, so you have, so design guidelines could actually make a difference there, because from a new development perspective, and then Highway 16 West, it's that little appendage up here that is undeveloped here in the city, this property up here. So all this other stuff, design guidelines would be really if you had them there, would be a redevelopment situation.
Is the recommendation to go with a few basic zoning districts and then with the option of creating overlays with particular rules, or does that actually go counter to this sort of simplification idea that is going
Right
here?
now, we have a mixed-use overlay, we have a sign overlay, we have multiple overlays. I can bring those up if you want to see them.
No, I'm just trying to get a sense of.
We're trying to get
like-
away from
okay.
overlays as much as possible, because it makes it
Okay.
more complicated.
Do you have a question about this table?
No.
It's for the other one. I was curious about this corridor mixed use versus downtown mixed use. And those are the only two mixed uses. Is that to imply that unless you're along one of the main corridors, which I assume we would define, you can't have mixed use? You couldn't have some mixed use in a neighborhood somewhere that's off our traveled corridors?
When we look at our residential properties, let's take we have a couple of residential mixed use, but those are like multifamily, duplex, and single family mix, so it's residential mixed.
Yeah, there's not a commercial that's.
There's not a commercial
Allowed in
element in
that,
there
okay.
except for home occupations.
Sure, okay.
If you look at the land use table, so there's like 4 pages of land use. I have to find it here. I believe the corridor mixed, it's called corridor mixed use. It probably wouldn't exclusively be on a corridor, but it allows for apartments to be in that corridor mixed use business district. So on the first page, you'll see apartments, multiplex, it's permitted in the CMU, townhouses and duplexes and twin houses are permitted, and boarding houses are conditional use. So you can see, potentially have, multifamily mixed in with commercial as proposed here. And that's pretty common. It sometimes can provide like a transition from a commercial building to a pure residential area too, when you have the multifamily, depending on how it plays out. But the idea is that even though it's called a corridor mixed-use business district, you can have residential in there as it's currently drafted. And not just an apartment building. If you see the next category, mixed-use land uses, mixed-use building. So you could have residential and commercial in the same building if someone wanted to. And we have that in downtown.
Right.
But we
And
would,
I think that works too. I mean, some smaller businesses, they want to live upstairs,
and,
whatever.
and as proposed here, this would open that up to areas outside of downtown.
Do you want to ask your question now about
Yeah.
accessories?
On a different topic of the tables we have in front of us tonight.
Turn your mic on.
I was looking over the tables here and thinking about what these accessory structures could look like in reality, should someone choose to build them. And the example of what I would hope would never happen next to my home would be at the corner of Dickinson and Prairie Street. If you were to look at the old bed and breakfast and look directly in its backyard, there's a giant wall of addition that's, I'm sure, I'm looking at it on Google Maps. I'm sure there's a setback, but there was an addition built in someone's home which is significantly larger than the home that they're putting the addition onto. And none of this necessarily would have changed any of that, but that addition looks like an eyesore next to that historic bed and breakfast, and probably devalues the bed and breakfast, making it hard to ever sell to a family who doesn't want to stare at a giant vinyl wall. I think is vinyl. It doesn't look good though. And I'm looking at this, and we're proposing allowing accessory structures 25 feet tall, 3 feet from the lot line. And to me, if I'm reading that right, it could allow some real degradation of properties if people choose to build these things.
So are you talking about accessory dwelling units or accessory structures?
On this table here where it says accessory building requirements,
Let's see, what page are you on?
I'm on the
Page-
second page.
Second
Page 2, it's the bottom line under accessory building, right? This minimum building height for accessory
Yep.
structure. Yeah, okay.
So, we're listing 20 or 25
What line is it? I'm sorry.
for maximum building height for accessory structure.
Yep.
We're showing 20 or 25 feet in red as the proposed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because the black is current.
the black is the current. And then some of these, we're bringing the setbacks, I guess, some of them have 5, some of them don't have it now, perhaps. But, I'm kind of looking at that and I'm thinking some of those could be really out of character in these old neighborhoods.
Right now, the rear setback for accessory structure is 5 feet. And then the standards dwellings side setback and front setback is applied to that structure as well. So we kind of have that right now. And in our older parts of downtown, I'm just trying to create, currently, we have, and David can comment on this too, we have quite a few accessory structures that are like 3 feet. We actually had a variance on that earlier this year on a redevelopment of that. We have quite a few, we have accessory structures on the lot line in the older parts of town. So ultimately, this is about,
Well, if it's like a single-story garage, then it's going to be in keeping with the neighborhood. I think it's the height
Yeah.
combined with a short setback that can make it kind of jarring, block sunlight from the neighboring property, and really be kind of imposing.
okay.
I don't know. That's
So one of the things, I'll just put down a comment, to kind of think more about accessory height,
Versus setback.
and then also, I think some of this is, if you have a steeper, the height comes into play, if you have a steeper pitched roof, like we have more frequently these days, sometimes you need more height to do that. But I think you're thinking of like a multiple story accessory.
yeah.
I don't know if it's in here because I've looked at a lot of different code and I can't remember where I saw it last. But sometimes there will be a reference to a certain height limit and 1 story.
Yep.
Right.
And that's a way to get at that, so that you don't have, or 1.5 stories. I think we have that somewhere in here, or in the PowerPoint, there's reference to 1.5 stories, because that way sometimes you can have that like finished, you can have that steep pitched roof.
There's a big difference
with
between
a-
those two.
Yes.
So you don't have that like full second story like a house as an accessory.
Yep.
Is that kind of what you're trying to get at?
Exactly. Just keeping the scale right in the neighborhoods and not building anything that's too imposing in someone's backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so would the number of stories satisfy that? That's the sketch I drew, right? How different a situation those really truly are, even though dimensionally.
One has a roof, one doesn't
fits.
on your drawing, but
Right?
the top one has a roof, the second one doesn't have a
Right,
roof.
both of them are 25 feet if you just look at that 25-foot height, but there's such a more imposing
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
character to that second one.
even if it was something like a two-story required an additional X number of feet or multiplier in the setbacks
Setback,
or
yeah.
something to prevent it from being an issue.
But by definition, does an accessory only have one story?
We'll be getting a draft on
okay,
those,
yes.
on those definitions that'll be coming forward.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen places where you have like these old Victorian homes, and there's like the old mother-in-laws or summer kitchen things behind them, which are really in keeping with the neighborhood. And I think that's kind of what we're getting at
Right,
allowing.
right.
And but I'm also trying to think of how could someone abuse this?
Sure.
And you know, do something very out of keeping. Again, I'm thinking income properties, out of town landlords, who are just going to pack something in there without regard for the aesthetics.
But yeah, that's a really good point. I'll have to go to that corner and take a look at that. You said that's a corner of Dickinson and Prairie.
Yeah, and it's, in case the person who owns the house who talked about it, sorry to beat up on the one, but it's just, it's not that it's an absolutely terrible looking addition, but it's unusually large in the back, and when you look at it from the neighboring property, the scale is out of character for the old neighborhood.
Have you gone through the house? I've walked by there.
You know
all
who
the
I'm talking, you know what I'm talking about?
I know, because
Yeah.
I live on that street. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I cannot picture that for the life of me. So have you looked at?
No, I've only
You've
seen
never
it
been
from
on
the
the property
street.
and that's how you
No,
noticed
I've-
it, or?
I go walking
Okay.
very often. I
Well,
live
and
a
you're
few
probably
blocks
more in
away.
tune to architecture than I am. I'm more interested in making sure that I stay out of the sun.
Yeah, it's one of
So the
those.
accessory structure next to you might help.
That'd be perfect for you.
Maybe
So we
that's
have
why I
different
walk on that
opinions
side
here.
of the
This is
street.
great. Okay.
Sometimes there's things which are within code, which just don't end up looking that good.
Right.
And it's that gray area where, again, this body, how much
Right.
are you telling someone they can or can't do with their private property?
So, but they would have had to have had that approved, right?
I'm sure it was
So like
permitted.
some kind
I
of
mean,
easement or something
well,
back in the day?
It probably is within the setbacks. I mean, I just
Oh.
remodeled my home, and I think the setback was 15 feet or something. Like our garage is right up against the lot, right up against the setback. I wish I could have built my new garage about 5 feet bigger. And when we tore down our old two-car garage and we built a new attached garage, then the setback actually got bigger because it was attached to our house. So it's interesting.
It wasn't
All the
an
inter-
accessory anymore,
Right, it's not an
right? Yeah.
accessory anymore. And you know, and I'm sure that someone looked at that and had a permit and it was done correctly. It's more so looking at it and saying, oh,
just not
we
attractive.
have rules that allow things that can be a little bit wonky for the neighbors, and trying to make sure we're doing our best to protect existing property values.
I think this is a great exercise. This is what we call at work, like, try to break the system, right? Try to break the database, try to break the logic, try to come up with some
Yeah.
example that, oh, it fits the rules, but is this really
Is
what
this
we
the
want?
output you wanted?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, as we go forward, continue to, on the weekend when you're thinking about zoning, think about these things, and as we go through with this draft, we can continue to revise it.
Okay, for the record, even I don't do that,
Yeah.
usually.
So, no, but the moral of the story is, yes, we want to have guidelines. So let's just regroup and start there maybe. At least in some appropriate areas of the city, we definitely need guidelines.
So we'll look at some flexible, moderate guidelines for business corridors and downtown. And we'll look at some options as far as process of approval, review and approval.
Sorry, I'm just writing some notes to myself, so
I have a
carry
question.
on with
I
the
have a
discussion.
question.
Yeah.
So if a business, if an existing business that's doing well wants to come into our community, what is the incentive for them to occupy an existing building or build something here? Is there any grants, any tax benefits, anything up our sleeve to attract them?
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's kind of outside of the scope of this conversation.
It is, but just for quick informational thing, we have TIFs number 4, 5, 6, and 7, which we can provide incentives in those districts. We also have our facade program. We also have grant opportunities with Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. We've had at least 2 community development investment grants to the tune of over 200, is it 2?
250?
But was it 2 projects or was it 1? Oh, it was 1, but there's another one that was pending that hasn't gone through yet. But we've had 1 WEDC grant application, or grant that was awarded to $250,000 in downtown.
Yep.
So there's a plethora of programs that we have between the city and state partner organization.
Okay.
So that was the Four Corners, and the owner, he redid the apartments on top and put some major money into it.
Yeah.
And he was one of the historic things that we reviewed in regards to requesting windows and whatnot, or comparable, something so that they matched. It was probably in 2021-ish that got approved.
And the question you asked was like more of a, like, active, what can we actively do? And that's, you know, the Community Development Authority is definitely the arena there. Like, but here, what we can do is, like Steve was saying, like, in a more passive way, like, not to be an impediment. Like, kind of that example you were talking about, you know, okay, the storefront down the way really could use a brushing up. When that person decides to do that, are the rules that we have here going to be such a burden that they would rather choose to do nothing? That's the outcome we want to avoid, right? Like, we'd rather have them be able to do something good instead of having something that's so cumbersome, burdensome, takes so much time that they're like, forget it, I'm just going to leave it how it is, which is not what anybody really wants. So,
Well, what I was going after is attracting businesses to move here because our community is such a unique place. You're halfway between Madison, Sun Prairie, and Beaver Dam, but we're closed. I mean, all the farming communities have us pretty much landlocked. So what kind of business would flourish? Well, the answer is a business that's successful. And I'm only going to throw this out there, but like Shoebox and Black Earth. This would be a great opportunity for them because they could attract Fond du Lac, Beaver Dam, Sun Prairie, Columbus, instead of traveling all the way to Black Earth. If we could attract their attention.
And that's really more of a community development authority.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm
So
trying to
we're
figure
really
out
trying to
what avenue do we have to go to
Right
do
now,
that.
if they decide to come here, we're deciding how their building can look. That's the level we're at right now.
The Plan Commission is about
Yeah,
rewriting these zoning rules
not bringing businesses.
so that when they do decide you know, it shapes the form and the density, the height. That's the role of this body here tonight.
Right. One of the things when you're developing a new business, uncertainty is unattractive. You know, if you're trying to decide where to locate, and you can't tell if you have to invest in civil engineering and architectural planning, and then go before an arbitrary board, that is scary for a developer. So putting in these design standards that are spelled out a little more, so someone understands, okay, if I spend the money on this and this, then I'm very likely to be able to do this. That makes it attractive. Where if you are trying to do something and you just don't have an idea, because like we require engineered stormwater plans before you can get a conditional use permit. So conditional use permits in this chart drive away businesses, because if I was to build my self-storage business again, I probably have $30,000 or $40,000 of stormwater planning in that I had to provide to this council or this committee and then council before I'd even know. I mean, you're gambling tens and tens of thousands of dollars when you have to do a conditional use permit. So I think we're trying to take some of that risk away.
We're trying to move away from conditional uses because with state law now, the revisions a few years ago, the standards have to be measurable and factual, and if the petitioner agrees to them, you have to grant that use. So we're trying to create much more predictable ways and move away from conditional uses whenever possible.
And there's the other reason to do that.
Yeah.
To use your successful business example of, you know, the shoebox or any other successful business that's looking to expand and looking to go somewhere, and they come and they're looking at Fall River, Columbus, and like town of Beaver Dam, right, where they've got some business development areas just south of town there, all in the same area, right? They'd be looking at things like Steve was talking about, like, oh, okay, which of these processes, I mean, they wouldn't totally decide on this, but it'd be a consideration. Which of these processes seems like the one I can work through? So those are like, we're not doing, you know, cash or incentivized attraction. What we're doing is we're making the process be attractive.
Well, and the other thing that any business is looking for is a growing community. It's very, very attractive when you're coming up with a new business that you want to open your new business in a community where your potential customer base is growing. And so, again, good development planning facilitates growing. And, you know, I would not want to open my business in a community that was shrinking or wasn't growing, because your business won't grow either. So, and there's a lot more to it than we control right here, right now.
So, in closing, am I in the wrong committee?
That's,
I'm not going to take motions.
that's,
I'm just asking a question.
that,
I'm more about developing and bringing in new blood than I am about the nuts and bolts.
that's not.
So am I in the wrong
If
committee?
that's what you want to do, that's not this committee.
So what would be the right committee for that?
Community Development Authority.
Can I encourage you two fellas to maybe discuss this
Yes.
after the meeting?
Well, no,
Because,
I'm
like-
done. I'm done.
okay.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Did we have other things about these documents that we want to talk about? I've got some ideas which are really more homework than anything else. I mean, but so
So generally, on the bulk, we've tried to kind of create more flexible rules, and you point out some of them are reductions and setbacks and stuff like that, so we'll try to address those in the next version with the accessory stuff. And we'll whittle down the industrial districts from 4 to at least 3, and one of them will have some type of design guidelines as we move forward. Anything else?
I haven't done this. I wrote these things down for myself. I'd like to try to find time to do it, so I'll, not in the business of assigning homework, but I'll let you know that these are the things I'm thinking about. But on the tables, right, are there any uses that I think are missing? Right, so any rows that I'm like, oh, well, I have such and such in mind, it doesn't fit one of these rows and I think we need it. So I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna go through all the Ps and Cs where they're marked in the columns, any that I agree with or any that I disagree with, maybe make some notes about, like, especially kind of in that same vein of what Steve Hajewski was talking about, like, kind of try to break the logic, right? Is there something I can think of that would go into one of these districts that, oh, that's really
Yeah,
undesirable?
imagine you don't care about the community and you're just trying to somehow make as much money as you can off of some development. How could you do something terrible?
And then, like, just like, are there other rows that are needed? What about other columns? Like, I can't really think of any other than my comment from last meeting where, like, a different intermediate minimum lot size, you know, we might want to have that.
And just
but,
so,
like,
so
those
you
kind of
know,
things.
and I think as we talked about that issue, I'm glad you brought that up. The idea was that the minimum lot size, we didn't want to have it so low that an existing neighborhood lot could be split in two.
Correct.
And from my initial, we'll do more analysis on that, but when I went through that, we didn't, there's a couple lots out there, I think, let's see this, I'm on the wrong page here. The one zoning district here, we had recommended 8,000. I would say probably 95% or more of the lots, kind of over by Kestrel Ridge. If you are less than 16,000, so you wouldn't be able to split them. There's a couple that are like pie-shaped, or they're double lots that were combined into one. There's some, we'll do some more detailed analysis on that, but that number works pretty well, although it's not like perfect for every lot, just because there's unique ones out there. And even over by like Brookside and some of those numbers might need to up it to 9,000 if we want to be more thorough, but we'll do more analysis on that, but it's close for that.
Okay. And for you, Mike, I'll encourage you to, like, envision some of those subdivisions as they were when they were more like half full. Like, I realize that most of our subdivisions are pretty full right now. So if you just look at the empty ones now and say, wow, they couldn't really do anything with that, that's not the situation I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like Cardinal, not Cardinal Heights, behind the water tower.
Is that Cardinal Lane? No, Cardinal.
Oh, no, that's, it's Ann Street.
Yeah, it's Ann Street. I think it's I think it's Cardinal something, but maybe it's just Cardinal Estates. Anyway, like, that was fairly sparse for a long time. So, like, that situation where, okay, maybe you couldn't split one lot into two, but you could split two lots into three. Thank you. Right.
I was following.
And so some of those situations that might arise over
I
time.
didn't even think about that.
Right.
Like,
Well,
turning
that's-
2 lots into 3.
Yeah. See,
yeah, we don't wanna
I'm the
ruin
developer
the
that wants to roll into town and just cram it full, but
Lots in your neighborhood that would ruin the look, going up that road. You know,
you from putting a triplex behind
There's a little bit of a method to the madness.
right. Yeah, stuff like that.
And how you want
And
the
I missed that.
subdivision to
I
appear.
couldn't quite hear.
Like, one thing I'm not 100% clear on is, we say accessory building requirements, but is there a definition of accessory building that's in there that might limit, like, let's say you have a single-family home with a decent-sized backyard. Could a developer who has that as a rental property put in a triplex or something in a neighborhood and turn it into more apartments, is there a limit that the accessory building should be shorter than the house, or is there anything that says it should be in a matching architectural style? I'm just kind of like wondering.
Yeah, some of that is gonna come in the part two
Right.
of the performance standards.
Do I have a pushy mother-in-law that wants a mother-in-law house bigger than mine on my property?
Yeah, and I'll make a
don't.
point to review that kind of stuff, and I'll mention that to Sonia as well. Because it's been a while, I know like they're not just accessory buildings, but accessory dwelling units. Those are a little bit different. And there's some state legislation that may require us to allow those. That's, again, the state kind of taking on a state role and getting into mandatory local regulations. So there's some, and that hasn't passed yet, but we'll kind of take a look closer at that. But there's, I think, some language in there about a accessory dwelling unit that's within an existing, stuff like that. It's one of those things, need to look at the draft state legislation and some of those things. But I'll have this down as a point to kind of look closer at with Sonia and bring that back as kind of a discussion point. Because those are all interesting things. And again, as Sonia pointed out, as far as accessory dwelling units, City of Madison has had something in place for a few years, and they have very few of those applications each year. They're pretty minimal. I forget, Sonia kind of has an idea how many were out there, but that type of use is, it's an option, but we're not going to get inundated with those.
Sure.
But we'll it's how those are done is very important.
So I just wanted to bring up a point on that. So an accessory, to me, that seems like that's just gonna be a slab foundation, right? That's not gonna have anything more substantial than that. And when you say that, are you talking about a size? I mean, are we talking about like a she shed? Or are we talking about like a bungalow so his mother-in-law could come stay?
We're accessory dwelling unit, we're talking about someone who would live there permanently on a regular basis. So that could
Or
be,
could rent it out, right?
I guess if you want that to be that way, you could. I can't remember what this potential draft legislation, if it addressed that. The other, the aspect is so elderly parents that need some support, that's one of the primary reasons. It could be adult children that have some type of handicap. Like I have a friend who has an adult son with autism, and so there's a level of independence and support that person needs. So, they have a place in another community in which the son lives in the accessory dwelling
Instead of
unit.
having to go to like an institution or like a nursing home for elderly parents or assisted.
Yeah, a group
living,
home.
and a group home,
Yeah,
that's the
Get-
other.
giving
Yeah,
people
and
a broader set
Avoid-
of choices.
Avoid
Yeah.
that.
And keeping in mind, you do want to give property owners the ability to do what they need to do to shelter their loved ones and family,
Yep.
but also, we have homes in this area that are 150 years old, and once it is built, it will be there forever. And so what will it be in 30 years?
Right. So we'll take a closer look at those as well, and I think this is one of these things, as you have one conversation about, even though you're not thinking about it all the time, you probably will, as you're drinking a cup of coffee or having a beer, whatever, it's just like, oh, wait a minute, there's something, we need to think about some of these things.
Yeah, wherever
And-
you get your bright
Wake up
ideas.
in the middle
Right,
of the
yeah.
night, you're like, oh my gosh,
Everybody gets their
I love
bright
that.
ideas in different places, doing
So,
different things. Yeah.
we'll talk more about this, and as you start to see the written drafts of the code, all of this is gonna start to come into play of what good things can happen, and just like you say, some of the things we don't want to happen, and this is gonna be a very dynamic draft as we go through. But I think you guys are on a really good track as far as thinking through all these and getting a sense of trying to find that balance on things.
When I think of these in the shower, can I grab a towel, type an email, and send you the question?
Yes.
Great.
Voice memo on your phone.
Carrier pigeon.
Whatever it happens to be. Okay. All right.
But anyways, I think, the one point I'll also bring across is, because when we talk about conditional uses, there's some uses out there that are very intensive, as far as the use, and sometimes we've combined, we have a new zoning district, proposed zoning district, that is, so right now, if you have a industrial zoning district and a use is conditional, if it's zone industrial, they just need to say, hey, this is what we want to do, and if they meet the conditions, we have to issue the permit. The zoning district on the far right, intensive outdoor activity,
Oh, yeah, that's the racetrack.
racetrack, data center, large solar farm, some of those things.
What page are you
This
on?
is right here,
Sounds the first one.
this column.
The description actually doesn't
Okay.
entirely match
Right.
the use.
But again, that's where, like, when you see the draft of the zoning code, there'll be a description of that zoning district, and it'll all start to come together a little bit more.
Right,
But
so instead of having authority over the conditional use, you have authority over a zoning change.
so when they come in, they apply for zoning stuff, and you can just, we have to take a look at the comprehensive plan, what that looks like and that kind of thing. But it's easier to deny a rezone than it is to deny conditional use, way easier. So these more intensive activities, we're forcing people to apply for a rezone and have greater scrutiny of whether or not we should allow them at all.
Okay.
Instead of conditional use permits done by zoning.
Conditional use permit, yeah, is a part of.
Instead of, right, but instead of a conditional use permit, they would have to rezone.
Yeah, and then and then we could also have certain performance
Because
standards.
we can't deny a conditional use permit, but we
It's
can
hard
deny
to,
a
it's hard to.
zoning change.
Yes, and then even if it's
State, yeah.
let's say it's a permitted use in the intensive zoning area, depending on what that use is, we can also have performance standards as well, so that even though we're permitting it, that there's certain requirements they have to meet, so we can do further work on that. So it could be, noise or whatever, whatever we come up with. But it's that zoning change, that's kind of if you don't have that, let's say you have in our light industrial district, and in a data center is a permitted use, or a conditional use, it's hard to deny that.
If they can find the land for data center, we gotta talk to them.
Yeah. But I'm using that as an
Yeah, I know.
as an example. So that's kind of, I think, one of the innovative parts of this code that helps us manage some of the more intensive land uses that we might potentially have. Having this approach is a really, really good change.
I like that. Cause most of the land that we could even, do we? Okay, yeah. Cause we zone even where we wanna potentially grow into it.
Extra, sorry.
We don't have extraterritorial zoning, we don't have that. We have plating authority, or plating rules, but we don't have extraterritorial zoning, that's.
Really?
Yeah, we don't.
So what do you do if somebody buys like land? and
Outside the
it's-
city,
Yeah,
we have no control over there. If they split it and they're within 1.5 miles, we have, like we had that minor
Oh, yeah,
subdivision.
Yep, yep,
So we have extraterritorial plating review,
Yep.
so there's some powers there, but we don't have extraterritorial zoning.
Is that because we're
But I'm
not a
talking
certain
about
class
like
of
this.
city?
So
We
like
haven't-
this area right here is not developed, but it shows as single-family residential.
But that's in the city.
That's,
Right.
Yeah,
it's in the
Yeah, I
city,
was okay.
yeah, yep.
So that's before the highway, so that's, yeah.
That's
within
in the city.
But if you go to the other side of that, where it's white.
Everything that's color is in the city.
Right.
Okay. So like here, we're planning that we want that to be a single-family residential, no matter who buys it. So that's what we have it zoned as, so then somebody couldn't come in and buy it and decide to put
It's zoned
industrial.
it's zoned agricultural right now, but that's like the general future land use category, so that's the vision. It could be multifamily also, because the other policies in the comp plan include multifamily, apartments along arterials, and Western is an arterial. So there is some this isn't the be-all, end-all of what
Right.
zoning
Right.
will eventually
Right.
be, but it's an important piece.
Because one of the things you were talking about, like, if something different than what was on this land use was proposed, that would be much easier to deny a zoning change to something that doesn't
So
fit the
in that
master
lavender,
plan.
Yep.
purple, what color we,
lavender.
lavender kind of color? Let's say someone wanted to put a data center in there. We have it planned for residential, so it'd be easier to not deny a PID.
Right, we would have to approve a zoning change for them to do that.
Plus
which
it's
we
zoned,
wouldn't because
plus
it
it's
doesn't
zoned
match.
agricultural,
Right.
so
Right.
we'd have to,
Right,
Yeah, okay.
right.
yeah. But one of in the future, when we update our comprehensive plan, I'd like to see something a little bit outside the city limits more, and communicate a larger
Yeah, and I
vision.
think that's kind of, yeah, what I would like to see too, because then it helps us identify kind of future planning for growth.
Yep. We'll do that when we update the comp plan after this zoning rewrite.
Okay. Other questions? Curiosities? Great ideas?
But I think,
Gosh, a lot of great ideas.
we'll take a second look at some of the residential unit, zoning districts as far as lot size goes. Looks like our business zoning districts are pretty good. Right now, we don't have, just to point out, our institutional district everything institutional is a conditional use. So if you want to put up a shed at the school, you have to come through, have a public hearing, blah, blah, blah. There's no setback standards. So in the new code, there'd actually be setback standards and a list of uses, and there's,
And then they can just put one up.
yeah, through staff, through a general permit.
Yeah.
The way it is now is just crazy.
Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of try to reduce our zoning districts. Actually, on this table of uses has been already updated. This bulk table is a little behind. So we right now have heavy industrial, light industrial, and business park. So the business park one would be the one with design guidelines. So we're really pretty close. We have a couple of new zoning districts, and we'll continue to do a little bit of review and keep working on those drafts.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.
All right. It's a long haul.